Oh, hello. Today we are going to do a little discussion video. Originally, my plan was to do a reading banned books vlog in Banned Books Week here in October, but because I'm currently doing my TBR read down, my focus really is on books I own this year. And good news is Banned Book Week comes around every year. So I thought maybe what we could do this year is I could just talk a little bit about what's been going on in the last couple of years here in my home state of Tennessee. I am sad to report that we constitute, I think, a third-ish of the books that have been banned or challenged in the last couple of years. We're definitely, I think, number 3 in the nation of most books banned or challenged, right behind Texas and Florida. So what a legacy for my homeland. Yeah, this is something that is, I think, really important to talk about because here in the US, at least, there's a growing culture of banning books, challenging books, and we'll get into some of the definitions just because I think it is helpful, because oftentimes people will come back and say, well, they're not banned, you can still get them. That's not exactly what that means. So I know that this is a political video. Guess what? Life is political. I heard a politician or a political science professor once describe politics as who gets what, when, and why, like in our society. And that is exactly what this topic is about, is who gets to read books, which books do they get to read, why, like, when are they able to read them, like when and where, and why are we letting them read some books and not others? So I thought we would just do a little discussion, a little State of the Union, at least state of this state. So yeah, like I was saying, and I have my notes up on a big screen behind you, so if you see me looking, it's because I want to make sure I've got my facts correct here. But according to, I believe it is PEN America, I think it was the ALA is the other source I got this from, but we'll start with some definitions, then I'll tell you a little bit about the situation in Tennessee, and then we will run down the most commonly banned or challenged titles here in the state, and my theory as to, like, we'll talk about why they probably were challenged. So the definitions is that banned books means access has been completely removed. Access to the public who would normally have access to that book. Note that that's not the same thing as like traditional censorship where the book is not allowed to be published. This is talking about like being able to access the book. Challenged means that it's under formal complaint or review, and it's pulled and may or may not return. Restricted means it's still available, but it is only available under certain conditions. So like, for example, in a school library, it might be based on your grade level. It might be based on if you have parental consent. And then informally removed is when it's quietly taken off the shelves and there's not like an actual record of what happened to the book. So a retort people will have is that, like, it's still possible to have access to these books. Like, if you wanted to go buy the book, or if if it's at a school library, the parent could go to the public library and get the book for the kid. But the point is that it's a book that otherwise somebody would have access to, and they do not have access to it because of an official body of some kind. Here in Tennessee, talking about us specifically, there was an act in, I think it was 2022, called the Age Appropriate Materials Act. And then there was amendments in 2023. So now, under Tennessee law, each school district, so they are specifically targeting school libraries. I did look, it seems that most bans or challenges in Tennessee do fall under the school library rubric rather than the public library rubric, though there are banned books in our public libraries. We're talking full-on adults being banned, like having their access removed to a book. Wild. But this specific act and what has like accelerated our status as banning so many books is correlated to specifically school libraries. So the rules are that each district has to maintain an online category of all of their holdings and flag the materials that are deemed inappropriate. The books can be removed immediately pending review if any parent or community member, so not even a parent at the school, files a complaint. And then 3, State Textbook Commission can uphold local removals, effectively making the book banned statewide in public schools. So because the reason these laws are so bad is that it makes it so that a lot of these removals, so first of all, bans, challenges, etc. are underreported in general because of that 4th category we talked about, which is informally removing them. So in general, I think this is, from what we can tell, this is underreported according to PEN America and the ALA. But in Tennessee in particular, it is essentially we have expedited the process of banning books because the laws make it so that a lot of those removed immediately books just happen without ever having to go through a ban hearing. So they're like in this status where they have been removed under this law. They're not officially banned, but functionally they are no longer accessible to the people who would have otherwise had access to them. So this really escalated in the last couple of years. And then last year, at the end of last year, it got kicked into overdrive. So in between the 2024 to 2025 school year, we recorded in Tennessee more than 1,600 book bans out of the nationwide 6,900 book bans. So we are the 3rd highest state of doing that behind Texas and Florida because of these new laws that went into place. In particular, I feel really strongly about this because so there's a couple of counties that have been doing a lot of this banning. Like it's definitely focused in certain counties. One of them is local to Nashville. It's in, I believe, Rutherford County. I think Rutherford County is where Murfreesboro is, but whatever the county Murfreesboro is, which I'm pretty sure is Rutherford, they have really popped off. And then the other 2 counties, one is McMinn County. They were kind of like the pilot of all of this. They had a ton, I think in 2022, they came up with this really big list that has become sort of a de facto book removal list for the rest of the counties to follow. And then my home city, which is Knoxville, Knox County, just in, I think, December of last year, so coming up on a year ago, implemented a really broad book banning in their school districts. So this is very personal to me. These are places I have live currently. The reasoning, part of what's very galling about this is that there is no, because of this like loophole, they don't have to say why it's been removed pending review. They can just pull these books and never have to say why, just because a community member objected to their presence. So I do think that in Murfreesboro, some of the public removals, there is a known reason, and it is explicitly because they contain LGBTQIA plus content. But there's other reasons as well, so let me tell you the official party line on why these are removed. So it falls under that age-appropriate materials. Let's see. The reasons cited for challenges or removals. What all did I list here? Okay. Things related to sexuality, both sexual expression, but then also orientation and gender identity are big ones. Nudity, excessive violence. Who's defining what is excessive? If you've ever read War and Peace, you'll know there's violence in that. I mean, it's in the title, War. Is that a problem? Red Badge of Courage, that's also violent. Like these are things that are subjective. And again, it is intrinsically political because it is deciding who is setting the standards of what everyone else is going to have to abide by, and everybody else's kids. Honestly, a lot of these like libertarian types who are like, get your hands off my whatever, I don't understand why they're so for this. Like, this is the antithesis of what they say that they want. I don't know. Anyway, and there's also the classic rebuttal of like, well, the Bible has a ton of excessive violence. The Bible has, incest, SA. enslavement. I mean, is that enough to ban it? And I would say no, because, well, anyway, I'll wrap up with my thoughts about why this is like absurd. So the titles I saw that were the most often, like in the different, so there was this list that McMinn County came up with I think like 400 or 500 titles on it. And then later there was the like 1,000 plus list. So between those, like when I was doing different Google searches, the titles I saw the most often that came up were Genderqueer by Jinder Kababe, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah Janet, Looking for Alaska by John Green, The Kite Runner by Khalid Hosseini, and then what were the other? All of Angie Thomas's books seem to come up on this a lot. Mouse by Art Spiegelman came up several times. Those were the most popular ones that I remember, but let me run through a couple more. I attempted to do a little VLOOKUP on copying and pasting things, so I can't promise you this is accurate data. Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut. In the Night Kitchen by Maurice Sendak. I mean, we'll get into it. I want to go through what I think the rationale for different things are. In the Night Kitchen by Maurice Sendak, A Light in the Attic by Shel Silverstein. What? The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. Late Night at the Telegraph Club came up several times, which kind of surprised me because that's a newer one. I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by Erica Sanchez. I think those are and then a couple more Sarah Janet ones were on here. The Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn. So in terms of like, what are the themes here? There are several books around, I would say, race-based historical trauma or historical identity. And then there are a lot of books that are related to LGBTQIA plus identity. Those seem to be the two main ones. The other thing is the Sarah Janet ones, which I am assuming is because of the maturity of the content in terms of like how it's portraying sex. And then, yeah, just like I think what's really like hurts my heart with a lot of these is that a lot of them are about either children who have a marginalized identity having representation of themselves in a book, and or books that are really about connection and empathy with identities that are not your own. So it's like, that's what is seen as threatening, which I think is really telling. If you look at headlines right now, you will see, especially when it comes to like the different ICE raids and stuff, like people do have empathy for their neighbors who may not be in the same situation as them. There are a lot of places that are not okay with you just kidnapping their neighbors off of the street. But to cut that, like, the part that is upsetting and depressing and makes me want to cry is that these are books that are grooming the next generation to hopefully be empathetic people who can identify with people who may not look like them or may not have the same story that they have or have the same cultural background or whatever. Like, that is what a lot of these books are about. And the reason that they're trying to get them out of those students' hands is because they want the next generation to not have that empathy. They are trying to strangle the empathy out of these children. So that is, yeah. I mean, I'm a Tennessee taxpayer. We don't have income tax, but I pay my city taxes. I pay my sales tax. I am fine with my money going to books that are about things that I don't agree with. Part of what is really galling is this idea of like cutting off access for all based on the preferences of a few. If I had my druthers, there are certainly books that I would rather people who are in formative years not read. For example, I would probably not be very comfortable with my 10-year-old reading A Court of Mist and Fury, but I don't think that that means that I get to make that decision for other people's kids. I don't think that that means, and also if I don't want my kid to read that, banning them from doing it or trying to keep it from them seems to me to be a self-defeating strategy if you've ever dealt with children about anything. So that's not the route I would take, and I also just think it's essentially letting other people make decisions about how you're raising your child for you. The counter argument being, like, here's what the counter argument will be, because I do live in this community, so I know, of like, well, the culture is shoving LGBTQ people down our throats, and I don't want my kid to grow up that way. Or you're forcing me to, be like woke and try to teach my kid wokeism. So this is me, like, I think there is a perception of people who are for these bans that this is essentially a countermeasure in kind to what they see as the cultural forces being imposed upon them and their parenting choices. The unfortunate fact of the matter is that we have a lot of data that shows that trying to like pray the gay away or whatever will not work. So like, your kids essentially having a wider cultural context where people can be themselves is not making your kids gay or get rid of whatever part of the rainbow mafia they may belong to, but it just creates an environment where they're able to express that. So like, your alternatives are either like letting them express it or trying to keep them from expressing it. That is not how those families see things. And that's where we have tension. And in Tennessee, despite the persecution complex that a lot of these folks have, and again, these are people I live, work with, and am related to, so I feel comfortable saying that this is common. They feel very marginalized, persecuted, put upon. And in Tennessee, they are the majority. So despite their feelings of being persecuted, they are able to enact these things because in terms of, I mean, actually it would be interesting if we looked at actual like sheer population, like if it was a popular vote, but certainly in the way that our electoral system works, they have the numbers. So they are able to impose their viewpoints on other people, ironically feeling at the same time very put upon that they are the ones being imposed upon. So it's a very depressing and vicious cycle. It is important that we don't, I think as the book community, this is something that we need to keep talking about, keep standing up for and saying, no, like, you don't have to like a book for it to be accessible to other people. Yeah. It's kind of just as simple as that. I mean, we're definitely, I've been listening to a lot of Behind the Bastards recently, so like, I'm definitely heightened and aware of like all the ways that we're currently falling into fascism. But like, restricting access to knowledge is a classic, right? Like, stick with the hits, man. Even if it's information I don't like, I think information should be available. That was actually a huge part of how I deconstructed out of evangelicalism. Was I went to grad school and realized that I truly believed that all truth was God's truth. So I didn't have to be afraid of anything if it was true. There's a lot of fear about things that are true baked into the way that this list is constituted. Anyway, sorry. Now we're truly going off on a tangent. So let me reel it back in and just say, this was a use case of my personal, where I live. This is a problem in my community. It's something that I try to counteract by donating to the Nashville Public Library. I'm so excited that we have, honestly, the best library system I've ever lived in. We have an amazing program with access to things. And while it is extremely depressing that there are bans happening, I, always try to follow Mr. Rogers' maxim, which is look for the helpers. The helper in my community is the Nashville Public Library. So I commend you to look up some of the great work that PEN America has done on this, that the ALA has done this. Look and see what kind of things are being challenged in your community. If you're a parent at some of these school boards, consider going to meetings and talking about how it's important to you that all children have equal access to all the materials that have been curated for them by their trained librarians who are the right people to help make those kind of curation decisions. So, with that, I'll leave this depressing little ramble here. Hopefully next year I'll get my act together and be able to do a vlog, reading some banned books. But for this year, I think that we'll just leave it at this case study. So, let me know, is there anything not depressing I can ask you guys to do? Maybe let me know what your favorite banned book is. I would say of the ones that are the most popular in my state to be banned, Mouse by Art Spiegelman is definitely my favorite. I would highly recommend it. When I lived in Vancouver, I actually went to an exhibit of his art. Like, it was an entire floor of the museum, and it was really, really neat. And that book in particular is incredible. It is about the Holocaust. It is a great way, because it's a graphic novel and therefore more accessible, sometimes to younger readers, a great way to show the realities of what genocide looks like. Again, not hard for me to connect the dots as to why there might be vested interests in people not being able, growing up and not being able to make those connections for themselves. So I would recommend Mouse by Art Spiegelman. What is your favorite banned book? Let me know in the comments. And with that, I think that will do it for me. Please take care of yourself, take care of your neighbors, be good to each other, like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that stuff, and we'll just talk soon.